Everyone just wants to live, laugh, love. But in this disappointing world, there are many who are
Hello?
faced with lies.
How do you feel currently in your relationship? I feel confused. I feel hurt, but I can't leave him. Am I crazy for staying? Am I the narcissist? Do you ever say, hey, you are in an abusive relationship, or hey, you need to get out of this?
This is Live, Laugh, Lies.
Natalie, welcome to Live, Laugh, Lies.
Thank you so much for having me.
Oh,
Good to be
absolutely.
here.
We are so glad to have you because we've had a lot of guests who've experienced liars, cheaters, narcissists, really wild stories.
After multiple stories of pathological liars, our wheels have been turning. Why do people lie? How does lying affect us? Is our society doomed? Instead of spiraling further, we decided to bring on a psychotherapist specializing in narcissistic relationships to understand the human experience a bit more.
What led you to that career choice?
I guess there's a cliche saying, like, I've always wanted to, like, help people, but I actually used to work in the entertainment industry, and I felt like that wasn't my calling. I just kept doing things that I wasn't really happy, and it really kind of gave me a good experience in the industry and recognized, like, people's mental health.
Yeah.
And I really wanted to do something about it. And
Yeah.
so I just decided to leave the industry and get my master's. And it led me here. I do specialize in narcissistic abuse recovery, and that's because I was in a narcissistic relationship also.
Wow.
So I think this is a combination of, like, my experience and things that I've been through in life really kind of led me here.
I feel like a lot of people who either work in mental health or do work in mental health, like even if it's not with a degree behind it, are people who have experienced things that have affected them and like brought them to that place. I feel like a lot of people get pushed to a certain point. Were you dating a narcissist prior to getting this degree, or did you go get this degree and then fall into a toxic relationship?
The irony, right? Like, as a
Yeah.
therapist, you would think that I would understand the traits and stuff. But, you know, at the end of the day, we're human, and not a lot of people were talking about narcissism 10 years ago.
Yeah.
So I did get trapped in a relationship, and I didn't know until I went to a therapist and said,
Wow.
and she's like, I think you're in a narcissistic relationship. I'm like, what? What is that? Because they don't really teach you. I mean, it's just kind of like, you know, skimming through the book and didn't really talk about what that looks like. So I learned the hard way,
Yeah.
living through it.
I was listening to an interview last night, and there was this question posed of like, how do you know when to leave / when to work on things? And the person who was like answering the question was like, therapy helps. Because like I was sitting there listening at the edge of my seat, like, how do you know? How do you know? And it's like, therapy is how you can figure that out. And you being somebody that's literally working in mental health, like, you know the signs, you know what to look for, you understand psychology, still being able to get wrapped up in something like that. I think people who are experiencing either narcissism, abusive relationships, toxic relationships, this is a good moment to like look at yourself and be like, hey, like everyone is human. Anyone can find themselves in this position. I'm curious what a typical session actually looks like with one of your clients.
Good question. The first session is really kind of getting to know my client. So I really built that trust and rapport. I think that's really important. And the confidentiality. I work with celebrities, I work with non-celebrities, and I just feel like a lot of people really want confidentiality. And people are just kind of afraid that it's going to get out. So we built that trust the first couple of sessions, and I built the rapport. I think that's very important, to build chemistry and connection with your therapist. So that's the first couple of sessions. And then as we kind of navigate the trust and the rapport, I delve into childhood and really kind of working on the childhood wounds and the dynamics and everything that like you learned growing up that are healthy and unhealthy.
Yeah.
And we go from there.
Do you ever have narcissists sign up for therapy? Like, have you ever had somebody sitting in your chair and you're like, oh my gosh, you're the problem?
Yes.
Interesting. Do
Yeah.
they think they're the problem?
No.
Are they there because a partner made them, or are they there because they actually want to find help?
They're there because they just want to prove to their partner that they went to therapy and will show the receipts like, here, I went to therapy. It's
That's
not
terrifying.
it's not lasting, it's not long term. They just come short term and
Okay.
they don't want to take responsibility and they just kind of leave.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Do you ever find yourself telling a client who's in a relationship like that, do you ever say, hey, you are in an abusive relationship, or hey, like if you're working with both people, whether it's a couple setting or individually, would you ever look at your client and be like, you need to get out of this, or do you have to work them to that conclusion themselves?
I always say, like, I plant a seed, and we all know the truth at the end of the day. We all have this instinctual feeling that this isn't right.
Yeah.
So what I do is I lead them there. I think there's this empowerment that comes from people recognizing it themselves versus, hey, me telling them, hey, you're in an abusive relationship, get out. People are going to be defensive if they're not ready. And I might come from like a very critical and judgmental place that a lot of clients don't want that. They want to be validated. They want, even when they feel like they're not in a healthy relationship, people still stick through the relationship longer than they should.
Yeah.
So I'm there to create that safe space for them to say, hey, whenever you're ready, I'm going to be here no matter what.
That's awesome. That's really powerful. And you do is it group therapy sessions? Is that what they're called? Yeah. Okay. What do those look like for people? And also, like, how do people, is it people who've recovered or who are recovering from it, or is it people that are currently in relationships? I feel like a lot of people feel shame around it. So I'm kind of surprised that there's people that are like willing to get together and kind of talk openly about it if they're currently in that situation, or is it all recovered or recovering?
It's both.
Okay.
I think there's a awareness when you're out of a relationship that can help people see the light. And then there's, others who are in the relationship who might need that support and might need that guidance to say, hey, like, it is green on the other side. It is a place where you can find fulfillment on the other side. So I do work with clients that are like currently in the relationship and out of the relationship.
Okay.
That gut feeling has been brought up many times on this podcast, from Risa Tisa's story to our very own host. But yet, we are all susceptible to lies. And the bigger takeaway is that you are never alone. Release that shame.
We've learned in this podcast that lying can have a profound effect on us for weeks, months, years after getting out of a really toxic relationship. From your experience, can you tell us some of the common mental health impacts that like a victim or somebody who is in a relationship with a narcissist or a liar, like what are some of the mental health impacts that they experience?
Sure. One of the things I think about is anxiety, right? So constant lying by a partner causes a lot of confusion. It causes distrust and emotional instability. And people don't lie just once. Lying is repetitive. It's constant. And also it's like this gaslighting technique that liars use, right? So it causes the other person to question their reality so much that they're confused over like what's true, what's not, what's right, what's wrong. It causes a lot of anxiety on the daily, even when they're out of a relationship, right? It's like they're waiting for the other shoe to drop. What's going to happen? Do I believe this person? What's true? They don't know. It's like they question themselves a lot.
Right. I think we've also talked a lot on this show about like finding that North Star and being able to like really trust your instinct, that intuition, that gut feeling. Like we all have it. And I think when you're in a relationship with somebody that makes you question that, it's like just the worst form of abuse, because it's like that follows you for so long. You don't know whether it's like in relationships or when you're walking alone at night. You're like, what, do I trust this, or is this anxiety because I don't know myself, I don't know my surroundings, I don't know who to trust, who not to trust? Do you feel like it affects people's self-worth as well, like how they view themselves?
Definitely. I think it affects a lot of things: their self-worth, their self-esteem, their self-love, and they don't really know who they are. I think that when somebody gaslights you often, you question who you are, your identity, your belief system. You really don't know what's right and what's wrong and what's the truth. So it distorts your reality and perceptions. I think that people in these types of relationships start distrusting when they're like even in a new relationship. So
Yeah.
it's hard for them to trust other people because there's PTSD. So one of the things is post-traumatic stress disorder, when they start, feeling like, oh my gosh, like how can I trust this person? Or even if the other person is it's a healthy person, they have a hard time really trusting them.
Yeah. Do you do any work with like attachment style stuff?
I do.
Okay, I'm really curious. Is there any particular attachment style that's more susceptible to being in a narcissistic relationship?
Narcissists are more avoidant.
Okay.
And so people who are more empaths that are attracted to narcissists are anxious attached.
Okay.
I don't think that like one thing, fits the description. But I know that narcissists are a lot more avoidant in dealing with situations. So I would say primarily avoidant.
Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting. I'm curious, is there a reason behind why people become a narcissist? Is it something they're born with, or is it like nurture versus nature?
It's definitely nature and nurture because there's no, research that suggests that it's genetics. It's learned behavior. So there's a couple of reasons why a narcissist will become one. There's abuse in the household growing up. So whether that's like emotional, verbal, and or sexual, physical abuse, the child feels neglected, and they create this ego. They create this mask as a way to cope with life, which means as an adult, they start, becoming egotistical. There's no empathy. They don't take responsibility. It's just a mask that they put on, but it's the insecurities are so deep that they like to hurt other people to make themselves feel good and on top of the world, because they weren't felt. No one has made them feel good when they were growing up.
You know what's so crazy is people that have been, how they say a lot of times people that have been abused then abuse. And when those people have to address it, a lot of times they don't know why they continued that cycle, because they're like, I know how it felt. It was horrible. I can't tell you why I did that to somebody else. So whether it was sexual abuse growing up, or if it was, emotional abuse or whatever that is, a lot of times that cycle continues. And it's so interesting because I think a narcissist, somebody that had that developmental stunt where maybe their parent didn't take care of them or didn't protect them, to finally find somebody that's empathetic, which you're saying is the most likely person to attract a narcissist. It's so crazy because you can finally somebody who's been hurt their whole lives can finally find someone that can hear them out, understand them, not judge them, love them, and still want to hurt that person. It's such a psychological trip.
Yeah, it's trauma.
Yeah,
it's trauma built over time. Some people who experience abuse growing up, they get older and they find they find a therapist, they work on their trauma and really kind of break through that and process that so they can change. But some people like narcissists won't be able to do that.
Okay.
Yeah, and on the flip side, it's not just abuse that causes people to become narcissists. It's also the fact that they could be the golden child in their childhood. So if they're kind of the golden child and uplifted and put on a pedestal, they're just on the pedestal for the rest of their lives.
Interesting.
And everybody's looked down, they look down upon everybody else, and everyone else is an object to them.
Do you think that every narcissist, if they wanted to, could they change?
If they see an issue and they recognize, or if they hit rock bottom, which whatever rock bottom is, it is for them. Maybe it's losing their family and just I don't know, getting into drugs or alcohol and just really, really hit rock bottom is the only time that I know that a narcissist have changed.
Okay.
And we see it on social media, right? I don't know if you've seen it, there's narcissists who say they're narcissistic and they're oh, I changed and stuff like that. But some do. It's hard. Yeah. It's hard for me to believe that. I haven't really met any narcissist that has changed, whether that's my clients' narcissistic partners or mine.
Yeah.
So
okay, this is such a like hot take for me, a judgy take, but I follow, and I hate that I give him a follow. I follow like a recovered narcissist.
Okay.
And I actually would love for him to come on the show because I think he would be very interesting. But hopefully he doesn't see this and not come on the show. But I kind of judge him because I'm like, okay, you're a recovered narcissist, but you're out here online like looking for attention and like getting all this praise from people who are like, oh my gosh, like and people they hype him up in the comments. And I follow him because he's interesting and he does have very interesting takes about narcissism and about like abusive relationships. It's like, it's interesting to watch. And I like to consume the content for like an awareness and like I like to stay on that side of TikTok, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
But I'm also like, are you really a recovered narcissist? Because you're out here literally seeking fame.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like a lot of like politicians, a lot of people in entertainment, a lot of people that are like seeking this like outside validation are narcissists.
Well, I guess they would like say that about me too, because I'm on
too.
TikTok, you know.
Me too.
So I think there's like a fine line, right? Like I'm on TikTok to promote, you know, people who may not be able to get therapy, you know, for financial reasons, or they're out of state, or whatever the reason is like I really try to promote help and like give coping mechanisms for my clients, you know. But I'm not a narcissist,
right,
you know,
but you're not like claiming to be this recovered narcissist.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So that's also the difference.
Totally.
But I would actually love to even sit down with him too.
Right.
And have that conversation
Yeah.
with you too. Why not? I mean, you're out there talking about it. Why not have like a solid conversation about both sides?
Right. I agree. I think it's so interesting. We've been trying to get more liars on the podcast because we have a lot of people that have been lied to and people that have been in abusive relationships or narcissistic relationships, but we haven't had a liar yet. And I'm like, bring them on. I want to do the grilling.
Yeah.
Not even the grilling. It's more so curiosity because I personally have also been in a relationship too that were like very bad, and I was lied to, manipulated, cheated on, and like definitely lost my North Star and lost my like sense of reality. And I mean, I actually feel like in one of them I was like driven crazy, where I was like, is there something wrong with me? Like, am I so far, like, is something so wrong with me that I am like making this up? Like, it was really bizarre.
I'm sorry that happened to you.
Thanks.
Because I totally understand it. You know, you're kind of isolated from reality and isolated from friends and family.
Absolutely.
You know, so it's like the person gets you into their sphere of control, and then like months go by, even years go by, and you're like, what just happened?
Literally.
I'm just like shocked. I don't see my friends. I don't see my family. I don't do anything besides just pleasing this person.
Right. It's really bizarre. But even still, this is the crazy part, is like I have empathy for them, because both of those people that really hurt me and affected me have like just they're messed up. And even to this day, like I won't talk to them, I won't communicate with them. I have them blocked and stuff like that. But to this day, I like feel bad for them, because I'm like, you'll never have what I'm gonna have in my life. Like you won't even have those relationships with your family, with your friends. Like even if I don't have a partner right now, like my friendships and my family and like the people around me are so wonderful, and I'm like, they will never have that, and they didn't have it growing up. And a lot of times like life feels unfair in those scenarios, and you're like, why am I getting treated this way by this person? But it's like, well, and they seemingly are thriving and they're seemingly moving on or whatever, and it's like, well, they don't have any of the other wonderful things that I have. And so I genuinely feel kind of sad for those people, and I have empathy to an extent, which is weird, because
you're kind of removed now.
True.
So you can have more empathy because you don't have any kind of connections with that person. You know, I agree. There's no genuine authenticity when it comes to that relationship or relationships in their life. There's no connection. There's no, genuine relationships that they would have, because it's all surface level.
In case you missed it, you can hear more about Susie's past relationships in episode 1. The biggest question we were left with was, why would you lie about having cancer? Let's ask the expert.
What do you think drives certain people to fabricate such serious, life-altering stories where they literally have to like keep up a bit? Like what what makes somebody do something like that?
First of all, when they lose control, they want to take control.
Okay.
And when your foot is out the door, one foot is out the door, one in, they already sense that, or both feet are out the door. They're losing control and they don't like it. So they will fabricate any stories to get you back. And kind of what I call love bomb you in.
Yeah.
And although, I have cancer, that's not love bombing, but that's victimizing. So if love bombing is not working for them, they're going to victimize themselves. I'm sick. I got into a car accident, and because they know you're an empath. They know like you're going to feel guilty and feel like you need to help them because, as empaths, we're nurturers. And so they pick up they've already picked up your vulnerabilities from the start.
Right.
And they know. So something like that where it's so extreme because the other ones didn't work, right? The other like reasons didn't work. And also something about lying, it's like part of the brain. I love the brain so much because everything is kind of like there and really lights up. And so I do think childhood plays a role, right, with lying. So what research says about the brain is when somebody lies once, there's a part of our brain called the amygdala. It's like this almond-shaped, thing in our brains. And that's part of the emotions and fear and feelings, right? So when that kind of lights up and every time somebody lies, they have this adrenaline rush, this cortisol level. And by the way, it continues, right? They have this rush. It continues so much until they become adults and the amygdala just decreases. There's no fear of lying anymore. There's no feeling like, any remorse or empathy about lying. What? So they keep lying and lying because that's why they become pathological liars, right? It stems from childhood, from that first lie.
That's so crazy. Mm-hmm. Oh my gosh. So the more you lie, the less sensitive you become to it.
Exactly. You're basically desensitized. The lie just becomes a normal thing for you. It's normalized.
So do you feel like it's crucial if a kid at a young age is having like lying issues? Like what does a parent do? Like how do you combat that so that your child doesn't grow up to become like a narcissist or a liar, manipulator?
I do think parents have a huge role in how you discipline or how you talk to your children. And, kids lie sometimes because, like they want to play a game and they say like, oh, I got an A on my test, but they didn't, let's say, But I think it's just about like, as parents, just validating like, it's okay. Like you don't have to, change your truth or whatever. I think it's just about like connecting with your child and not judging them. You're a bad kid for lying.
Right.
Or shame them for lying, right? So it's like if the kid wants candy and can't, you just teach them like lying is not really good. I mean, we don't really condone that. And really use positive, negative reinforcement for the child to understand the difference.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. Mm-hmm. Okay, so obviously narcissism wasn't spoken about a lot up until the last few years. And now I feel like we hear about it all the time.
A little too much.
I was going to say, I feel like so many people are like, oh my God, my ex was a narcissist. I don't even feel comfortable saying that about the guy that lied about cancer, even though I'm like pretty sure he was a narcissist, but I'm like, I can't diagnose somebody.
Yeah.
How can we actually spot a legitimate narcissist without like making a diagnosis ourselves? But how do we look out for that? Like what can we spot to see whether somebody's doing something narcissistic or if they are a narcissist?
Yeah, it's a good question. And I feel like you have to kind of understand the type of narcissist you're dealing with, whether they're overt or covert. And so there's overt and covert narcissist. Covert is someone who is one way in front of the public and different behind closed doors, which means like they act differently in their romantic relationships.
Okay.
And then overt narcissists are someone who's just like, when you can tell, you're like, okay, you're just like kind of messed up.
Yeah.
like
everyone
you're like,
knows.
there's something wrong. Yeah, there's something
Yeah.
wrong with you, and you're just all about yourself, and
Okay.
everything's self-serving to you. And you're selfish. So they show it. It's not like they hide their, narcissism. So I think to know the difference is important. Also, narcissism is a spectrum. It's not just like, this person has narcissistic personality disorder.
Okay.
So somebody can have traits and still be a narcissist. And a couple of common traits are pathological liars, being selfish, being not taking responsibility or accountability, lack of accountability, lack of empathy, lack of remorse. And then also when they like kind of change up their moods, they're hot and cold in the relationship.
Yeah.
They're really great in the beginning, and then all of a sudden, let's say they change. So those kind of are very common traits in a typical narcissist.
That's good to know. Okay, one of our guests actually shared her experience of dating, marrying, and later divorcing a pathological liar. He lied about everything, like even his social security number on their marriage certificate. Like he had multiple wives previously that he didn't disclose. She at some point was able to reflect, and she was like, there was a point where she should have like gotten out, but she felt like she was so far in. Why do you think people stay in these relationships with someone even when they're aware that their partner is consistently dishonest?
I think that when you feel stuck in the relationship where you're kind of already in it, whether it's like 6 months in, years in, you feel trauma bonded.
Yeah.
And it's not love, it's just trauma, and that kind of attaches you to the chaos, to the highs and lows of the relationship.
Yeah.
And it does, again, I really am a firm believer in like working through your childhood so that you don't repeat the pattern. And she probably had, whether it could be a narcissistic parent or somebody who, she definitely had people growing up that showed that side.
Yeah.
I don't know if you've heard this, but there's a saying that says we date or we marry our unfinished business.
Ooh, that's good.
Yeah.
Damn,
So
I gotta finish some business.
yeah. So it's the things that we couldn't as a child
Okay.
have control over, right? If you had a parent who's narcissistic and it was all about them, you don't really have control over anything as a child,
right?
So you lose control. And so you become like, to you that might be normalized. So childhood plays a big role in just kind of like breaking through the trauma so that you don't repeat the pattern. So if you're dating somebody who's a pathological liar, that could be normalized to you, and they're like, okay, fine, whatever. Even though it feels like something's off and I know they're lying, you don't want to leave the relationship because it just feels like the unknown is so much more unbearable that you just decide to stick to the relationship longer than you should. But eventually, I feel like, how much can you tolerate toxic relationships?
Right.
Everybody has their tolerance level, and I feel like a lot of people tolerate too much, and that's okay. It's just a matter of getting yourself out at some point.
Right. I'm curious. So after someone leaves a narcissistic relationship and they're in recovery, they're working with you, what sort of things do you work on with them specifically? Like somebody that's listening that doesn't have access to a therapist, what can they do to prevent themselves from re-attracting somebody that is the same as their ex, like a narcissist or an abuser?
I think that awareness plays a big role. We're so in our subconscious minds, and our subconscious we can't see, right? It's like right here in the back of our heads. And so in therapy, we're working on bringing the consciousness, right? So if someone can't go to therapy or talk to a therapist, there are like nonprofit organizations and that people can seek therapy for free as well. or they can read books. For example, I don't know if you know this, I didn't share this earlier, but I have a book called Detoxing from a Narcissist.
I was going to say, I think I saw on your Instagram page when I was looking at
Yeah.
your page. I was like, I think you wrote
I'm going to
a book.
give you one. I brought it. Yeah.
Oh, amazing. Okay, I'm excited.
So, those are also things that like people can utilize, like books and like resources like that. And I created that book because, for people to actually have something hands-on. So if they can't afford therapy, at least like they can, like even in the book, I'm like, I'm with you.
Yeah.
Like I kind of basically build that safety and security for them to know that they're not alone. So books are really great. Now everything is online, right? Like you have people talking about it on TikTok, on Instagram, like following the right people is going to be really important too. So it's just a matter of bringing awareness to yourself.
Right.
Or perhaps this podcast. Contrary to popular belief, I'm not out here with the sole purpose of exposing liars. Whether you love me or hate me, this creepy Love Island knockoff is just trying to create a safe space and spread awareness to anyone who may share one of these experiences. But exposing liars is definitely a plus.
What advice would you give somebody who is currently in a relationship and they're not sure if their partner is a narcissist or if they need to leave? Like, what would you tell that specific person? Like, what's their first step?
How do you feel? How do you feel currently in your relationship right now? And if I ask them, they're going to say, I feel confused. I feel hurt. I feel sad. I feel unhappy.
Yeah.
But I can't leave them. It's hard to leave. I feel stuck. Am I crazy for staying? And that's the answer.
Really?
Because in a healthy relationship, I went from a toxic relationship and really worked through my stuff.
Yeah.
And now I'm engaged in a very healthy relationship.
Yeah.
And it's just wild to see that, right? Like, I want to show people that you can have a healthy relationship after a toxic relationship. Because people in relationships, like toxic relationships like that, they think they're never going to find anybody. No one's going to be as perfect as them, the toxic person. And it's not true. Not every thought that we have is true.
Yeah.
I think that our minds kind of play tricks on us based off of like memories and, like things that you learned in your, I would say, unhealthy relationships. So I just feel like, that you're in an unhealthy relationship by the way you feel.
Yeah.
If you feel unhappy, it's bad. Continuously, not just like I'm unhappy for the time period. It's repetitive, right? It's if you continuously feel unhappy, that is a problem.
This was a thought I had earlier, and it's a thought that I actually had when I was in one of these really negative relationships. Do you ever have clients come to you that are the victim of narcissism, but then think they are the narcissist?
Oh, all the time.
I literally, to this day, sometimes I'm like, am I the narcissist? Like, am I the one that is like creating this for myself? But then I even think, I'm like, the fact that I'm even like questioning
Exactly
makes me think like, okay, they think I'm safe. It's like this fear of like, I can't trust my own brain, which I feel like it comes back to that, like that inner self, that trusting yourself. I've found myself in that exact position, but I'm curious, do a lot of people that are in those situations come to you and actually think they're the problem?
Almost every single client of mine that have been in those types of relationships has said, am I the narcissist? And I even have that on my book because I've heard it so many times. And the reason why is because they can't really fix the narcissist, right? So they think there's something wrong with them,
right?
Because they're thinking, I can change myself to please him or them or their relationship. You know what I mean? So that is the reason why people question, is because they've been gaslit so many times, day in, day out, without even recognizing. It's a manipulative tactic that you might not even know how many times you've been gaslit.
Yeah.
And so to the point that you're like, am I the narcissist? And no, you're not. If you're questioning yourself, you're not, because the narcissist will blame the other person for being a narcissist, not themselves.
Right. Okay. That's so interesting. It's also so validating because I feel like to this point in my life, there's times where I'm like, am I? Which I am the issue, obviously, to some extent. Like, I feel like we get ourselves into situations and we have issues in relationships. And so it's like, we do have to take accountability where we can.
Yeah, absolutely.
But I think that there have been times in my life where I'm like, am I the one? So it's kind of validating to hear that people that are in those situations actually start to question themselves and wonder if they're the actual issue. Do you find that people who are in like narcissistic relationships like find themselves in those situations in the workplace, in friendships, even outside of the romantic connections? Is it like a reoccurring thing where they just keep getting themselves into these situations?
Definitely. It's a cycle. It's a pattern. It's not just romantic relationships. It's friends, it's coworkers, it's bosses, it's anybody.
Okay.
Anyone.
Wow.
This is some really heavy stuff, but hopefully validating at the same time. I think it should lighten it up a bit with a game.
Red flag, green flag from a therapist. Okay, the person you're dating doesn't have social media.
Oh, green flag.
Green flag, right?
Love that.
I know. The person doesn't respond to texts within a couple of hours.
In between.
Yeah.
In between green flag and red flag.
Yeah, I agree with that. I feel like it depends. Can you give us a little insight?
Well, it depends, because if they continuously go for hours not responding, that's a red flag. If they do it like once or twice because they're in a meeting, that's fine. That's green flag.
Yeah.
It only becomes a red flag when it happens repetitively.
Someone who talks poorly about other people behind their back.
Red flag.
Red flag.
Major red flag. Like when I was dating my fiance now, not once did he say anything bad about his ex. Not once.
Wait, he didn't say anything
bad.
You're good? You're the guy you're with now?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
okay.
So, and the toxic narcissistic ex would basically call his ex crazy when I was with him. And that was such a big red flag, right? It's like, I should have known.
Right.
But you're so much more aware now. Obviously, I wouldn't choose someone like that, but it's like, that's the biggest red flag.
I know.
When they talk, sorry to say, but shit about their ex.
Yeah, absolutely. No, that's so hard, because when sometimes I had a situation like this years ago with one of these guys, that the stuff he would tell me about her, I was like, oh my gosh, like you were, like I was thinking like you were in an abusive relationship. Like I had the empathy for him. I was like, she was cheating on you the whole time. It's so crazy how they can like twist it. And then he did the same thing to me. He did basically what he said she did. He did those things to me. It was so wild.
It's manipulative.
Yeah.
At the end of the day.
I also like don't necessarily think that he was lying that she did those things to him, because I think like there was kind of proof, but I'm like, were they both just doing it back and forth to each other? Like,
narcissists can date narcissists too. It wouldn't last, but it's very volatile.
Wait, that would be an interesting.
Yeah.
Let's get a reality TV show about that.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, I wish.
Yeah, like Narcissist
Please call me and tell me I'll be there.
Oh my God, we need you as like the host or something.
Yeah, I would do you think I could be a host?
Yeah. Oh my God, yes, absolutely. Narcissist Island. We're pitching it right now.
I love it. Let's do it.
We'll bring in a bunch of narcissists, and then you can host and navigate the conversations.
Amazing. I'd so do that.
I will be there as well, just to observe. I just need to see it go down. Okay, someone who says they love you within the first few weeks of dating.
I don't think that's. I think that's a green flag. Yeah.
I think it depends. I feel like it's a green. It could be a green flag. Could be love bombing, but could be.
It really depends, because it's not just like I love you, but if the relationship takes off like a really intense feeling.
Yeah.
And then they say I love you, that's only to like get you into the relationship.
Gotcha.
But if you feel like, oh, things are really good in the first couple of weeks and this person really feels the love for you and they express it, I think that's really nice.
Love that.
Yeah.
Okay, great. Someone who if it's a guy, he calls his mom every day.
Red flag.
Wait, really? Red flag?
100%.
Yeah.
I mean, it, you know, like I think.
I love that reaction. She was like, red flag. No, I
no,
agree.
that really is.
Yeah.
Even if their moms or, don't live in the same state, maybe like, checking in,
Yeah.
but not calling like at night with, or, it depends on the
I think
day. I think
there's-
it depends on the day,
Mhm.
depends on like the, relationship between them. If it's like codependency,
Oh,
then,
yeah.
like run. Yeah.
Or like a crazy controlling mother. Like I feel like there's so many like weird like guy mom dynamics.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Interesting. Someone who hides their phone screen, like flips it on the downside of
Red
the table.
flag.
Red flag. Easy.
Oh, yeah.
Close friends of the opposite sex.
I don't think it's a red flag.
Okay. Neutral.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
would say neutral.
Shares detailed stories of their past relationship.
If they continuously do it, that means they haven't gone over it. But if you guys are both sharing at a time where it's like, okay, I was in this relationship, it was really tough for me, and they also share. I think the sharing is like a way to connect, but not repetitively. So it's a green flag when someone's actually expressive about their past relationships. If they don't talk about it, I think is a red flag.
Yeah. Wants to keep your relationship private.
Oh, that is, yeah. Oh, well, private how?
Right. It's like
Like,
nuanced, right?
Yeah, like private, like I'm not gonna show the world, I'm not gonna like show you to the world on social media or invite you over to with my friends or in family. That's different.
Yeah.
So privacy, full privacy, and I'm just hanging out with you at my house is a red flag, and not inviting you to like, hang out with his friends or her friends. Like that's yeah.
How long do you think somebody should wait before they post you on social media?
Ooh, that's a good question.
Yeah.
I think it takes time and for people to really like get to know each other.
Yeah.
I think that you can start posting when you make it official.
Yeah.
At least within like the year, and you're like, for sure this person is, my partner.
Yeah, I love that.
Yeah.
Okay, Natalie, thank you so much for joining us today. I wanted to give you an opportunity to plug your social media, also your book again. I feel like everyone needs to go to your page, and I learned so much just going through like the little clips on your page as well.
Thank you so much. You were so lovely to have this like chat with. I appreciate being here. So my Instagram handle is selflove__society. I also have like a TikTok where I talk about narcissism and toxic relationships. I do have a book, Detoxing from a Narcissist. And I really do hope it helps people.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for being here.
Thanks for having me.
This podcast has been brought to you by Podcast Nation.